But for now, we discussed the fact that if you are a superstore or liquor store, Real Canadian Superstore or Liquor Store shopper, you might have to find a new place if employees there go on strike. 97% strike vote. I don't know if that's 97% of people turned out or 97% of people voted to strike at Calgary Superstore and Liquor Store locations. So we are bringing into the conversation right now Tom Hesse, who is the Union Negotiator for United Food and Commercial Workers Canada, Local 401, who represents the Alberta employees. Good day to you, sir.
Good day. How are you this morning, Roger?
Fantastic. Aaron's with me as well. Can you clear that up? Is it 97% of people turned out to vote, or 97, or the yes vote was 97%?
Yeah, a strike vote is essentially a poll of employees, so it would vary by store. We've had turnouts as high as 60% in any given store, and some certainly lower than that. It's not unlike any other electoral process where there is a vote and it is counted based on the number of people who show up. But these numbers are the highest in our history, the highest I believe in retail history. And if a pollster had 60% of people come out and vote for something, that's more than a representative sample. That's very statistically significant. I guess would be an understatement. And these employees have really spoken in resounding terms that there is really something fundamentally wrong at Superstore.
Right, but hang on just a second, but that suggests that the 40% who didn't vote, if 60% is the number that you just gave that we're going to go with, 40% endorse the voting practice, or the voting result rather, of the 60%. Although what I heard you say was that approximately 58% of your employees want to go on strike.
No, what I think it represents is if you go into a superstore, there's certainly a certain amount of turnover, some employees who are indifferent, some people who will probably quit next week. Remember, this is a workplace with probably 50 or 60% turnover per annum. So from a statistical point of view, it's really as strong a strike mandate and strong a statement that one could give. Even the company's own internal polling, they have a poll for employees called Tell It Like It Is.
Okay.
60% of employees who work for Superstore feel that the company does not treat people with respect. So we're not surprised by the numbers. We can quibble about what they mean statistically, but what I do know intuitively, and any of your listeners, would know intuitively, that when 60% of your employees are coming out and basically voting unanimously, that they're prepared. If I could just finish, that they're prepared to stand on a picket line, then there's something fundamentally wrong with what's happening there.
And so what exactly are we striking over? Because it says, I demand respect, I demand to be treated as a person, I demand fairness. But what specifically has happened that has made...
Yeah, it's interesting. When you work anywhere, sometimes it is hard to point to one.
No, but this should be really easy. This should be a point where you give us a list of the problems that employees are encountering at Superstore.
I can, but I'd rather approach it from a human point of view, and I will give you that list. But let's start with the notion of I want to be treated like a person.
Okay. I want to stop you right there because I get it, but I don't. As I shop, well, then give us the list then, sir, because I shop at Superstore and I really don't see a ton of inhumane treatment of the staff there. I think that might stand out if they were being treated inhumanely. Yeah. But what are the grievances that employees of Superstore have?
Well, the number one issue is and customers and employees share this point of view, is that there's no hours being placed into the workplace. So specifically, and indeed you do want specifics, the number of hours that are being distributed to a largely part-time staff at superstores across this province are the same or diminishing over the last 4 or 5 years. And what does that mean in practical terms? So you want a list? Number one, it means that employees can't make a living without any hours of work.
Okay.
Number two, it means that when there aren't any hours in the stores, the quality of service plummets. So it's a matter of public record. The CBC has reported that product isn't being rotated, so there's outdated baby food. In Edmonton, there was a ceiling collapse because the building wasn't being properly inspected. In Calgary, the origin of your broadcast, employees were subjected to and customers were subjected to a mouse infestation such that stores were closed. So when you don't put hours into a place, there's no stock, the shelves are empty, the employees suffer, the cleanliness suffers, and the food safety suffers.
Okay, do you represent those who would inspect buildings and those who would deal with mouse infestations, or do you just represent employees of?
Well, the employees are left to deal with those matters largely.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's no time to do the job, or employees aren't on site working, things start to fall through the cracks. Indeed, I was the negotiator at Lakeside Packers, and I saw this problem there when I was the negotiator, and I said to them, look, you're not giving employees the time and the hours that they need to do the job. You're pushing them too hard. Things are going to fall through the cracks. And we saw the largest beef recall in Canadian history.
How much does an average Superstore employee make per hour?
You know, I haven't looked at those figures, and I haven't done an average in recent months, because it certainly vacillates as the composition of the workplace varies and senior people leave and new people are hired.
Right.
But it would be in the $12 to $15 range.
$12 to $15 range for a frontline grocery store employee. So, what is the timeline for the strike? I know that you're doing strikes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. There's some that are paid more.
Sure.
You know, there's no doubt about that.
Sure. What's the timeline here? I mean, I know that you're actually touring the province right now, taking these strike votes. I believe you're in Fort McMurray today. Well, what's the timeline then for Job Act?
Well, under Alberta law, people can theoretically go on strike on 72 hours notice. But no one wants to go on strike. People want to make a living. They want to save this business. They want it to be a better place to work and to shop. We're going to do our best to avoid a strike. I think the strike vote, at least at this stage, is about leverage. And trying to, send a message to Galen Weston Jr. and those people in the boardrooms in Ontario, in Brampton, Ontario, that Alberta workers and consumers matter, and they want Superstore to clean up their act.
I'm glad you brought up Galen. I'm glad you brought up Galen Weston Jr. So Loblaw companies routinely win awards for providing an excellent workplace for new Canadians to get their start in their new country's employment life. So it's interesting that they are viewed that way as a great employer of new Canadians. And I can't help but think, if you have a workplace with a largely immigrant population, and Loblaws makes a lot of concessions to people to make sure that that their diversity is not only celebrated but understood, and that there's a lot of there's prayer rooms in certain stores and whatnot. So I think part of me thinks they're doing a pretty decent job of giving people a foot in the door to employment in Canada. And then I go on your website, and you've got a link to a website called greedygalen.com.
That's correct.
Now, is UFCW behind that website?
Oh, certainly we are, in consultation with the Alberta Federation of Labour, and I'd like to address the points that you've raised specifically. Number one, I always view those best employer citations with a grain of salt, and I wonder who's on the board of directors and who awards the awards. Are there employees on those boards? And there aren't in these cases. Are there bargaining agents on these? Are there human rights groups on these groups that award best employer awards? And there are not. So I view those suspiciously. At the end of the day, we can learn a little bit about the way the Westons do business by having a look at what happened in Bangladesh, the largest industrial manufacturing accident in the history of the world, where the company knowingly operated in and through 30 or 40 locations, I am told, where employees are paid 13 to 23 cents an hour in unsafe conditions. And listen, I have no doubt that the Weston family they're nice people, and they would like to do the right thing, but the draw of profit is what our society is about. Well, yeah. We're urging the Weston family to take the high road. And they do, I think, have some enhanced and increased competition with companies like Target and Walmart. And you can take the high road or the low road. And we're asking them to take the high road and invest in their stores and invest in their employees.
Okay, Tom Hesse, you've got a lot more to say, and we're up against a break here. So let's just stop down, play some commercials, then we'll come back.
Congratulations, you are part of the next big thing. Kingkade and Kelly. New talk, new team. On News Talk 770, Calgary's breaking news and conversation station.
All right, gave a little extra time to Tom Hesse here from UFCW 401. Superstore workers have voted in pretty big numbers to go out on strike, or a pretty big number, 97% to go out on strike. So, Tom, what exactly is it that the union wants?
Well, Roger, the union, on behalf of Superstore workers, and they're indistinguishable, the employees have told us what they want. And they want a safer, healthier workplace with more hours so they can make a living.
Okay.
And so
this is not necessarily a wage increase, just more hours?
I would say the number one focus is more hours, because really, your wage increase, there should be wage increases for these employees. We're a rich economy. The population grows. The economy continues to move. Really, any part-time employee will tell you that a wage increase doesn't mean that much if they don't have hours to be able to pay their bills. And they want to be able to save their business. The business model is a problem right now, and they know that more hours are critical to providing the product to customers so Superstore can compete. Unless it becomes a better shopping experience, just go talk to Superstore shoppers or employees or ex-employees about what it's like to shop there. Empty shelves, broken carts, no service, pushed through self-scanners, dirty stores. That's got to change in order for Superstore to survive, and they want to save their jobs and save this business.
I like the self-scanners. Does Galen Weston Jr. play polo?
I don't know if he plays polo.
Okay, that's an interesting answer, because on this is a practice that we call rich shaming. GreedyGalen.com is the website, and on it portrays Galen Weston as a particularly wealthy man, which he is, Galen Weston Jr. It shows a picture of a palatial expanse, a vacation home any of us would like to live in, a picture of Galen, a vault filled with gold coins, and then some people playing the sport of polo. So I'm wondering if this website, the fact that it's created by UFCW and the fact that it's, as such endorsed, and I'm sure spread that you've informed your employees, the Superstore employees, that this website exists. Does this not spread misinformation to people who are already having a hard enough time getting information in this country?
Well, fair enough, but Galen Weston himself has addressed with the website with us, and he says it's fair game. He says he is the face of the company, and you'll see the figures in there are fair game. They did buy Shoppers Drug Mart for $12.4 billion. They're the second richest family in Canada. They do stay with the Queen when they visit England. You can Google and have a look at their palace in Florida. Well, it has lots to do with it. Albertans and your listeners, it has lots to do with this. No one denies them their wealth or their privilege. I don't deny them that. They are who they are.
It sounds like you are denying them that. It sounds like you're making that, you're trying to compare these poor Superstore workers with greedy Galen, when I don't know that he's done anything it doesn't look to me like he's done anything of greed. This is not a greed issue.
If you don't think that it's greedy to knowingly go to Bangladesh and pay people 13 to 23 cents an hour when you could compete, when you could produce that product and give those employees reasonable working conditions,
but in Bangladesh, that's a fair wage.
Still make an extraordinary profit, then you have a different definition of greed than I do.
I do, obviously, because I think that that's quite fair for Bangladesh.
What is your definition of greed, then? If taking from people when you don't have to, for the sheer pursuit of the gold, money,
but
and
we're
not
in a
having any
capitalist country. That's what we do. His job is to make a profit. His job is to make sure that everybody who goes to Safeway or Superstore, no matter how many hours a week that they get, that he can keep that company open. He's not just going to throw money out the window.
I agree with you in a measure, and we're not suggesting that he throw his money out.
Yeah, you are. You're telling him he should spend more just to help somebody.
But there should be a balance. There should be a balance. And on your theory, if the endless pursuit of capital is fine, we had that on this continent for 100 years. It was called slavery, and that's got to change. And there are times.
I don't think he's a slave. I don't agree with you at all. I don't think that's what this is about.
Well,
I think it's easy to point the fingers at a rich guy and make it like he's a greedy rich. That he's got slaves. I think that's very easy to do. But
if you think it's okay to pay people 13, the Pope doesn't agree with you. He called it slave labor.
But they're making more than minimum wage. If you said the average wage is 12
cents an hour in Bangladesh is not. Sorry.
No, the issue here is Alberta. You are representing Alberta on a strike, and that is what we're talking about today. And so $12 to $15 an hour is more than minimum wage.
I'm wondering if I can answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
What is at issue here is a general corporate perspective, and the corporate perspective is a greedy one. It is manifested in the global economy in places like Bangladesh, in Red Deer, in Calgary, and elsewhere. And I think most of your listeners would agree that there's nothing wrong with pursuing a profit. It's healthy. I celebrate entrepreneurship, but there has to be a balance. And there's a point where you can stretch the elastic so far where you compromise your own business interests. You can't attract workers. Your stores start to look like a mess. When you don't invest in your people, your most valuable resource in the business will ultimately fail on that model, and it's not sustainable.
And do you contend that profits for superstores are rising?
Well, you can read about it on Greedy Galen.
Is that a
memo?
So that's a yes, profits are rising.
Oh, yes, they are rising. And indeed, he had money to buy Shoppers Drug Mart for $12.4 billion.
Tom Hesse, we have to let it go there. Thank you so much for your time today. And
happy to be on the show, and good luck to you guys with your new show.
Best of luck to you too. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.